I have a column up at CNN.com today about America being a suicidal superpower. Yeah, I know, I'm thinking the same thing. I can't believe CNN.com keeps posting this stuff, but they do. The point is actually pretty simple. We don't control our future because we don't control our energy supply. Read the whole column on the website, but if you're like me and you pass on the book because the movie's coming out soon, let me give you the real story right now. $120 a barrel oil has given America the opportunity of a lifetime. Every company knows that maintaining control over the price you charge for your customers is essential to staying in business, right? But as you just heard from the president of OPEC in our first story, OPEC has no control over their prices anymore. So while that may mean $200 oil and get this, $7 to $10 a gallon gasoline, it also means that they won't be able to collapse the price of oil, whenever a real alternative is trying to get off the ground. And here's what I mean by that. Comparatively speaking, oil has been so cheap for so long that it just drove every other competitor out of business. For example, back in 1980, the U.S. invested billions in a synthetic oil initiative. OPEC saw how serious we were about actually putting these guys out of business, so they put our initiative out of business by bringing the price of oil from over $39 a barrel to $8 a barrel. Not surprisingly, kind of worked. Put us out of business. OPEC has controlled us ever since. But things are different now. According to the state of Montana, which has been called the Saudi Arabia of America because they have so much coal, it costs $55 a barrel, or it costs $55 to make a barrel of oil synthetically. That's a 50% discount from what it costs to buy it from OPEC, so why wouldn't we do it? Oh, and as a small side bonus, we're in bed, with heartland ranchers and coal miners instead of slimy Middle East dictators who hate us. Yeah, I can see why we're not doing that, huh? What's the holdup? Montana Governor Brian Schweitzer is with us now. You and I talked about this, I don't even know, 4 years ago? And I was talking about it on the radio, and you heard about it, and you called up, and you said, Glenn, we're doing it right now. Because I'd been reading history, I'd found the Nazis were doing it, and that's what kept Hitler in business for so long. Why hasn't this gotten off the ground yet, Governor?
As you know, oil's been cheap. And of course, the South Africans, they picked up the technology from the Germans. And for the last 50 years, the South Africans have been going it alone. They didn't have oil, but they didn't want to be dependent on the rest of the world. They did have coal. So they've been making their own liquid fuel. And as you said, the Synfuels Corporation, at the end of the 1980s, we were going to build 100 of these synthetic fuel plants, but we only built one. One has been completed at Beulah, North Dakota, and they've been gasifying coal since 1984. And of course, what's more important here is that they separate the CO2, and it's actually being pumped to oil fields, increasing our oil production. Well, Glenn, we have a lot of coal. America has about 400 billion ton of coal. Now, if we were to convert it to a liquid fuel, that's about 800 billion barrels. We only import 4 billion barrels. That's a 200-year supply. But what we need is, we've got to break that addiction to foreign oil, and we break it in several different ways. We use American ingenuity. We need to have a diversity of fuel supplies. Yes, wind power, solar power, coal gasification, more domestic drilling of oil. So, Governor, we've got to protect the environment, but we have the energy supply here.
You're a Democrat. I told you when you were on the program, God bless you, man. I don't care what party you're from. Just use some common sense. You're known as a green governor, and you're talking about using coal. Again, what has stopped you from doing it? Why don't you take your state and just say, we're going? Can you get investors, or what's the problem?
Well, here's the deal. There's going to be a new carbon law. Every single ton of this coal, when you burn it, emits about 2 tons of CO2. And whether you're talking about the Warner-Lieberman bill or the Bingaman-Specter bill, Republicans and Democrats, both working in Congress, there's going to be a significant cost to emissions of CO2. Now, all the coal companies I'm talking to, and I've talked to some of the biggest, they say, sure, we're ready to go. The technology companies are ready to go, but we need Congress to tell us what the rules are. We don't know if the cost of that CO2 is going to be $10, $20, $30, whether the money is going to go into a technology fund or whether they're just going to put it into the general fund. whether they're going to invest in carbon sequestration technology, whether we're going to pass laws to store the CO2. You know, in a state like Montana, we can only move so far before we break into the interstate commerce clauses.
I have to tell you,
we've got to have a national carbon law.
This is why. No, we don't. This is why. This is what happened to us in the Depression. Business couldn't do business because the state kept putting more and more regulation. They kept changing their mind, going back and forth. That's why we had a 10-year depression. It is time to tell Congress, you know what? We're doing it, man. We need the oil. We need the energy. Governor, I'm sorry to rant on you.
We've actually got a few companies that are coalescing around projects in Montana and other places to gasify this coal, either make electricity or liquid fuels. We can be energy independent, but we need to use American innovation to get there.
Well, the military's already doing it. The military thinks it's important enough to run our ships and our planes and everything else. Governor, stay in touch. Thanks.